Welcome to Crisis in Perception, where we examine the systems shaping our world one book at a time.
Today is going to be a heavy one, but an essential one. We are looking at what are, in many ways, the blueprints of modern society.
Absolutely. And to get there, to really, understand what we're talking about, I want to take you back to a very specific date.
Okay.
We need to set the scene. It's March 2nd, 1757.
Okay.
We are in Paris, and we are about to witness a public execution.
And we should probably warn you right now. The source material for this, the book we're discussing, it opens with a description of this event that is, well, visceral is an understatement.
It's more than an understatement.
It is genuinely hard to stomach.
It is. But we have to look at it because Foucault puts it there for a reason. This isn't just a hanging. This is the execution of a man named Robert-François Damiens, who was convicted of regicide.
He tried to kill the king.
He tried to kill the king. And because he attacked the sovereign, the king's body, the sentence is designed to be the ultimate spectacle of pain.
It's pure theater. That's the key here. It's a theater of punishment. The king needs to demonstrate his power in the most undeniable physical way possible.
So picture this. Damiens is condemned to make what was called the amende honorable. He's taken to the Place de Grève, this public square. He's in a cart, wearing nothing but a shirt, holding a burning torch of wax.
A symbol of his crime.
Right, and the sentence itself, I'm looking at the legal text Foucault quotes here. It says the flesh will be torn from his breasts, his arms, his thighs, and his calves with red-hot pincers.
It's just unbelievable.
And his right hand, the hand that held the knife he used for the crime, is to be burnt with sulfur.
And that's just the warm-up, so to speak.
Right, that's the beginning. Into those open wounds that the executioner has just created, he's ordered to pour molten lead, boiling oil, burning resin, wax, and sulfur all melted together.
I mean, it's a recipe for maximum suffering.
Exactly. And then, after all of that, his body is to be drawn and quartered by 4 horses.
The account Foucault uses, it comes from the Gazette d'Amsterdam and an officer of the watch. It goes into the mechanics of this.
Yeah.
It wasn't a smooth operation at all.
Not at all.
It was messy. It was technical. The sulfur didn't burn hot enough at first, so they had to light it again. The executioner, a man named Samson, had to twist the pincers to actually get the flesh off.
And all the while, Damiens is screaming. The account says he's screaming, "My God, have pity on me."
And the horses, that part is just, it's almost darkly comedic if it weren't so horrifying.
It's absurd. They hooked up 4 horses to pull his limbs apart. But horses aren't designed for that. They're designed to pull carts in a straight line.
They don't have the right kind of torque, I guess.
So they pulled and pulled, but the body wouldn't break. The joints held, so they had to bring in 2 more horses.
6 horses.
6 horses pulling on this man. And still nothing.
It becomes a fiasco. The executioner is panicking. The horses are exhausted. The crowd is just watching this completely botched job.
Exactly. And this is meant to be a show of the king's absolute power, but it's starting to look like incompetence.
It is. So finally, the executioner has to take out a knife and literally cut the sinews and hack at the joints just so the horses can finally rip the limbs from the torso.
It's a spectacle of absolute, unbridled violence. The king's power is literally being written on the body of the criminal. It's messy, it's loud, it's a gloomy festival, as Foucault calls it.
A festival, yeah.
The crowd is there, watching the blood, hearing the screams, watching the struggle. It is a moment where power manifests as total physical destruction.
Okay, so keep that image in your mind. The red-hot pincers, the screaming, the crowd, the blood, the sheer brutal physical destruction of a human being.
Now, let's get the camera.
Yeah.
We're going to jump forward in history, but not 3 centuries, not even 1 full century, just 80 years.
That's a single lifetime? A person could have been born during the execution of Damiens and died during what we are about to describe. It's an incredibly short span of time for such a radical change.
It's 1837. We are looking at the rules for the House of Young Prisoners in Paris. And the contrast. It's like landing on a different planet.
It really is. Go ahead. Read the timetable.
Article 17. The prisoner's day will begin at 6 in the morning in all seasons. Article 18. Rising. At the first drum roll, the prisoners must rise and dress in silence.
In silence.
As the warder opens the cell doors. At the second drum roll, they must be dressed and make their beds. At the third, they must line up to go to the chapel for morning prayer.
And it just continues like that, doesn't it? Work at 5:45. School at 20 minutes to 11. Meal at 10. Everything is regulated by the minute.
It's clean, it's quiet, there's no blood, there's no screaming, it's just Silence and drum rolls.
Yeah.
It's all about order and routine.
And this brings us to the core problem, the crisis in perception we are tackling today. This is the central question of Michel Foucault's Discipline and Punish.
The question is, how did we move in such a historically short window from the public dismemberment of Damiens to the quiet, rigid timetable of the reformatory?
It's a huge question.
It is. And the easy answer, the one I think most of us grew up believing, is that we just got nicer. We became more humane. The Enlightenment happened. We realized torture was barbaric, so we invented prisons as a kinder, more enlightened alternative.
That is the standard history, isn't it? The humanization narrative. We became more civilized, more moral. But Foucault, well, he's not interested in the standard history.
He slams the brakes on that idea.
He stops us right there. He says, no, that is not what happened. This wasn't about the heart growing fonder or softer. It was about power becoming more efficient.
So the shift from the scaffold to the timetable isn't a moral upgrade. It's not about progress in that sense.
It's a technological upgrade. Foucault argues that the old system, the spectacle of the scaffold, was actually really inefficient. Think about it.
Okay.
It was expensive. It was unpredictable. Sometimes the crowd would sympathize with the criminal and see them as a martyr.
Right, if they were brave in the face of death.
Exactly. Or if the executioner botched it, like with Damiens, the crowd might riot against the authorities. It was a huge political risk.
Right, if the execution goes wrong, like with Damiens, where it just turned into this prolonged, ugly butchery, the king looks bad. His power looks sloppy, fallible.
Precisely. And intermittent. It was a one-off event. You catch a guy, you torture him, it's over. But this new system, the system of the timetable,
It's continuous.
it creates a continuous, steady pressure. It's not about destroying the body anymore. Foucault says it's about training the soul.
Training the soul. It sounds almost religious, but I get the sense Foucault means something very, very different here.
Oh, very different. He's talking about the microphysics of power. He's not looking at who holds the crown or who passes the laws. He's looking at how power moves through the architecture, through the schedule, through the way we are taught to hold a pen or march in a line.
He's looking at the small stuff.
The very small stuff that, when added up, creates an entire system of control.
And this matters to us, to you listening right now, because we live in the world of the timetable, not the scaffold. We don't have a king threatening to pull us apart with horses. But we have alarm clocks, performance reviews, credit scores, and permanent records. We have systems that constantly measure and correct us.
Precisely. We live in a society that relies on what Foucault calls internalized discipline. We police ourselves so the state doesn't have to. And today, we're going to look at the blueprints of how that system was built.
Before we really get into the mechanics, we should probably talk a little bit about the author, Michel Foucault. He's a giant in 20th century thought, but he's also notoriously difficult to read, isn't he?
He can be, yes. His writing is very dense, and he doesn't call himself a historian, which is a key thing to understand.
No, he prefers the term genealogist,
Right.
which sounds like looking up a family tree or something.
It's a similar concept, but he applies it to ideas and institutions. If you look at a traditional family tree, you might be looking for the noble ancestors, the kings and queens, to prove your lineage is pure and noble.
You want to find the good stuff.
Right. Foucault is the opposite. He's looking for the accidents, the weird conflicts, the forgotten, often messy origins. He wants to trace the ancestry of our current behaviors to show that they weren't inevitable.
They didn't have to be this way.
Exactly. He asks, where did this specific way of punishing people actually come from? Not from some grand idea of humanity, but from a series of small, calculated shifts in strategy.
And in Discipline and Punish, he's using that method to challenge that myth of humanization we mentioned earlier. He's saying that the gentle way, imprisonment, correction, education, is actually a more invasive form of power.
That's the critical distinction. The old punishment, he calls it sovereign punishment, attacked the body. It crushed you. The new punishment, disciplinary power, attacks the mind, the will, the inclination.
It wants to reform you.
It wants to cure you.
Which sounds good on paper. I mean, curing sounds a lot better than torturing.
Yeah. Does it? That's the provocation. Foucault would ask, what are they curing you of? Deviance, nonconformity. If the goal is to render you docile, to make you a productive, obedient component of the state, is that freedom?
Or is it a deeper kind of cage?
A much deeper kind of cage. Foucault calls this the shift from sovereign power to disciplinary power.
Okay, so let's define those clearly for everyone so we have our terms straight as we move forward.
Good idea. Sovereign power is the king's right. It's fundamentally the right to take life. I can kill you. It is exercised over a territory. I own this land, and I can kill you if you break my laws here.
Simple, brutal, visible.
And it's spectacular and sporadic. It happens in big, bloody displays, but not all the time. Disciplinary power is different. It's the system's ability to correct. It is exercised over bodies and populations.
Not just territory.
No, it's more granular. It doesn't want to kill you. It wants to optimize you. It wants to make you useful.
So it's continuous and subtle.
Exactly. It's the quiet hum of the institution, not the loud crack of the whip.
Okay, so how does it do that? Because Foucault gets into the nitty-gritty. He breaks it down into specific insights or technologies.
Yeah.
And the first one that really stood out to me in the text was this idea of the docile body.
Yes. This is the foundation. You can't have discipline without first having a body that is receptive to it. This is the discovery of the body as an object to be manipulated.
He uses the example of the soldier.
Yeah.
And this was fascinating to me because I think we just assume soldiers have always been trained the same way, marching, drills, and so on.
But that's a relatively new invention. Foucault shows this distinct shift in the 17th and 18th centuries. If you look at texts from the early 17th century, if you wanted a soldier, you look for a guy who was already built like a soldier.
You were scouting for talent. You were looking for the big, tough guy, the natural linebacker.
Exactly. Foucault quotes a source describing the ideal soldier of that era. He has a sign of strength, a distinct physicality. You look for the guy with the broad shoulders, the thick neck, the fierce glare. The soldier was something that was born.
He was found in the world.
He was a natural phenomenon. You identified him. You didn't create him.
But then you jump forward to the late 18th century and the military manuals change completely. They stop describing what a soldier looks like and start describing in minute detail how to make one.
The soldier becomes a construction project, a piece of clay to be molded. It becomes a matter of posture, calculated alignment of the head and shoulders, eyes fixed, knees taut.
It's all about angles and measurements.
The body is broken down into parts, arms, legs, fingers, torso, and then reassembled into a new machine. It's an anatomical project.
There's this quote about the rifle drill that seemed almost absurd in its level of detail. It wasn't just load your weapon and shoot. It was broken down into dozens of tiny, precise steps.
Bring the weapon forward in 3 stages. Move the right hand to the trigger guard in 4 movements. It's an optimization problem. How can we make the act of firing a rifle as efficient and repeatable as possible?
Foucault calls this the political anatomy of detail.
Which is a great phrase.
It is a great phrase. Let's unpack that. Political anatomy. What does that mean?
It means the body is being treated as a piece of political machinery. Power is no longer just saying, go fight for the king. That's a macro command.
Right.
Power is now saying, move your index finger this way, place your left foot at this angle, hold your chin at this height. It's reaching into the very mechanics of your physical existence. It's deeply invasive.
And why? What's the point of going to that level of detail?
Control and efficiency. It's about creating interchangeable parts. If I can control your smallest movements, I can control the outcome. I can take 1,000 unique men and turn them into a single predictable unit, a machine of war, because every part functions exactly as the manual dictates.
You remove the individual quirkiness?
You remove individual agency, really, and you replace it with standardized automatic movement.
So the end result is a docile body, a body that can be used, transformed, and improved.
A body that is both productive and subjected, and this is the key. Once you have standardized the parts, the soldiers, the workers, the students, you can link them together into larger machines. But this doesn't just happen in the army. This logic moves into the factory, the school, the hospital.
Which brings us to the second big insight from the book, the art of distributions. Basically, how you organize these docile bodies in space and in time.
Because if you want to control people, you first have to know where they are. You have to be able to locate them. Foucault identifies a few techniques here. The first one is enclosure.
Which is pretty intuitive. You need a closed space.
Yeah.
A container.
Like a prison.
Or a boarding school. Or a factory with walls and a gate. Or a military barracks. It's the camp model. You lock the perimeter so you know exactly who is inside, who is outside.
It separates the disciplinary space from the rest of the world. But once they are inside, you can't just have them running around in a mob.
Right. A mob is dangerous.
Yeah.
A mob is unpredictable. It has its own power, so you need to break it up.
And that's the next technique, partitioning.
This is the grid system, isn't it?
Exactly. Every individual needs a specific assigned place. In the old days, a classroom might just be a chaotic group of kids of different ages gathered around a master who is reading a book.
A one-room schoolhouse.
Right. But in the disciplinary system, it becomes a grid, rows and columns. Each student has their own desk. Each desk has its own location.
I remember looking at old photos of Victorian schoolrooms, and it looks exactly like a factory floor or a prison mess hall. The layout is identical.
That's not a coincidence. It's the same technology being applied. And this partitioning allows for the third technique, rank.
This is crucial.
It is. Where you sit defines who you are. Are you in the first row? You're the best student. The back row? You're the troublemaker. The remedial section. The advanced section. The space itself classifies you.
It turns physical space into a visible hierarchy.
And it makes supervision incredibly easy. A teacher can stand at the front of the room and at a single glance see exactly who is missing, who is misbehaving, who is out of place.
It prevents horizontal communication, students talking to each other, passing notes.
And it enforces vertical communication, each student looking forward, listening to the teacher. The lines of communication are controlled by the architecture.
Okay, so that's space. Then there's time, the timetable we talked about right at the start.
The seriation of time. Power takes control of the clock, but it's more than just start work at 8. It's about breaking time down into ever smaller, more controlled segments to extract maximum utility.
Time is money, as they say.
Essentially. But in schools, time is learning. In the army, time is training. Foucault talks about how the concept of exercise is invented in this period.
What do you mean invented?
Well, you don't just learn a trade by watching a master for 7 years anymore. That's inefficient. Instead, you do exercises. You practice a specific skill over and over, graduated by difficulty, moving from one level to the next.
So time becomes linear. It's evolutionary. It has a goal.
You are always moving towards something. Graduation, promotion, release. You are never just being. You are always becoming something else through the carefully managed schedule. The system constantly pushes you forward along a predetermined track.
It feels like we are building a machine. You take the body, you break it down into its component parts, you put it in a specific box on a grid, and you run it on a strict minute-by-minute schedule.
And to make sure that machine keeps running smoothly, you need the third and perhaps the most famous insight of the book, the Panopticon.
The Panopticon. This is probably the one term from Foucault that has really bled into pop culture. Everyone sort of knows the word. But let's strip away the references and go back to the source. This was originally an architectural design by Jeremy Bentham, right?
Yes, Jeremy Bentham, the utilitarian philosopher, he designed it as the ultimate, most efficient prison. He actually called it a mill for grinding rogues honest. A great, if terrifying, turn of phrase.
Can you describe the visual for us? What does it look like?
Imagine a ring-shaped building, a circle. The building is divided into cells that go all the way through, from the outside to the inside of the ring. Each cell has 2 windows, one on the outer wall to let light in, and one on the inner wall facing the center.
Okay, so the cell is backlit. The light shines through it like a slide.
Precisely. Now, in the very center of that ring, there is a tower, the watchtower, and the tower has wide windows opening onto the inner side of the ring.
So the person in the tower can see into every single cell.
Perfect, unobstructed visibility. The inmate is isolated in their cell, unable to communicate with neighbors, but they are fully, completely exposed to the tower. But here's the trick. The tower has blinds, or zigzag openings, or one-way mirrors in a modern interpretation.
Ah, so the inmate can't see into the tower.
Exactly. The inmate in the cell can see the silhouette of the tower, but they cannot see who is in the tower. They never know if the guard is watching them at that specific moment.
So the guard could be there staring right at you. Or he could be having a coffee. Or he could be asleep.
Or the tower could be completely empty. It doesn't matter. Because the inmate knows he might be watched at any moment, he has to act as if he's being watched at every moment.
This breaks what Foucault calls the dyad of seeing and being seen. Usually if I look at you, you look at me, there's a reciprocity. But here I am seen, but I cannot see back.
And that creates a profound psychological shift. This is the crisis in perception right here in miniature. Foucault says the major effect of the Panopticon is to induce in the inmate a state of conscious and permanent visibility that assures the automatic functioning of power.
He becomes the bearer of his own subjection.
That's the key phrase. He polices himself. The external chains are removed and they are replaced by an internal monitor, an internal guard. The system creates a state of perpetual anxiety and self-surveillance.
It's incredibly efficient. One guard, or as you said, 0 guards, can control hundreds of inmates. It's the automation of power.
And Bentham, being a good utilitarian, didn't just see this as a design for a prison. He saw it as a model for everything.
For schools, hospitals, factories.
Absolutely. He has a very practical question. Why wouldn't you want a factory where the workers work hard, even when the foreman isn't looking? Why wouldn't you want a school where the students behave perfectly, even when the teacher steps out of the room?
It's a terrifying kind of genius.
It is. And Foucault's great insight is that while we didn't build thousands of literal Panopticon buildings, we built a Panopticon society. The principle was generalized.
How so? How does that work without the literal tower?
Through the instruments of disciplinary power. Foucault lists 3 main tools that implement this logic without the specific brick-and-mortar tower. They create a kind of social panopticism.
Okay, let's run through these tools. The first one he calls hierarchical observation.
This is the microscope of conduct. It's the idea that architecture is no longer built just to be seen, like a palace or a cathedral designed to impress you with its grandeur. It is built to observe.
So walls are lowered, interior windows are installed, open spaces are created.
Think of a hospital ward from that period, with the beds lined up so a single nurse can see everyone, or an open-plan office, or a school hallway with windows in the classroom doors. They are built as observatories. The gaze becomes the primary tool of rule. You don't need a whip if you have a window. Supervision becomes generalized and constant.
And then there is normalizing judgment. This one really struck a chord with me because it feels so incredibly modern.
This is crucial. The old legal system, the king's law judged crimes. Did you steal? Did you kill? It was a binary, yes or no. But discipline judges deviations from the norm.
It judges you for being late, for being rude,
Right.
for being messy, for not paying attention in class.
Foucault calls it a micropenality, a penalty of the norm. You can be punished for almost anything that isn't normal for any small infraction. And the goal isn't just to punish, it's to correct, to bring the outlier back to the average.
Normalization. We hear that word so much today, we're obsessed with it. Is this normal? Am I normal?
That anxiety, am I normal, is the product of this system. It's a question that wouldn't have made much sense before. We are constantly comparing ourselves to the norm. And the system uses a combination of rewards for conformity and punishments for deviation to nudge us toward that center.
If you are a good student, you get a gold star, a good grade. If you're a bad student, you get detention, a bad report.
Both are techniques of normalization. They are 2 sides of the same coin, designed to keep you in the grid and moving along the correct path.
And the final tool creates the paper trail for all this, the examination.
Which combines the first 2, hierarchical observation and normalizing judgment. The exam, the inspection, the performance review. This is where power and knowledge fuse together.
How so?
When you are examined, whether it's a medical exam, a school test, or a job interview, you are being made visible and you are being judged against a norm. You are being made knowable to the system.
And you are being documented.
Yeah.
Foucault talks about the rise of the file and the case history.
Yes. This is a massive shift. In the old days, only heroes and kings had biographies. You wrote about the life of Caesar. You didn't write about the life of the random peasant. But in the disciplinary society, the common man, especially the deviant one, becomes the most documented person.
Think about it. Your school grades, your medical records, your vaccination history, your credit report, your employment history, your permanent record.
You are turned into a document, a case. And that document allows the system to track you, classify you, and compare you to the norm over time. It fixes you in writing. It captures your identity in a file.
So if we pull back and map this whole system out, it's not just a king and an executioner anymore. It's a vast, sprawling machine.
It's a whole network. The actors are an army of technicians: wardens, doctors, chaplains, psychiatrists, teachers, foremen, social workers. They're all, in their own fields, doing the same thing: observing, normalizing, and documenting.
And the narrative, the story the system tells about itself, is that this is all for your own good. It's reform, it's education, it's healthcare.
That's the brilliance and the danger of it. It claims to be scientific and neutral. It obscures the fact that it is a power structure. When a teacher corrects a student's posture, it looks like help. And it is help, in a way. But it is also shaping that student into a specific kind of subject that fits the needs of the system.
There's a really interesting comparison Foucault makes here to explain the logic of this system. He contrasts the way society dealt with the leper and the way it dealt with the plague.
This is a brilliant metaphor for the whole shift. Think about how the medieval world handled lepers. It was a binary division. You are clean or you are a leper. If you are a leper, you are cast out.
Excluded.
You're sent to the leper colony, left to die or live apart from society. It's a ritual of exclusion.
Out of sight, out of mind. That's the exclusion model.
Exactly. But now think about how a town handled the plague. When the plague hits, you don't just kick people out because you don't know who has it yet, so what do?
You lock the town down.
You freeze everything. You impose a quarantine. You divide the town into districts. You assign captains to every street. You demand everyone stay in their homes. You take roll call every single day at every single house. Is everyone there? Is anyone sick? You record the answers meticulously.
It's a grid. It's constant surveillance. It's inclusion.
It's analytical power. Every single individual is counted, inspected, and located in space. Foucault's core argument is that modern society took the logic of the plague, the grid, the inspection, the timetable, the constant surveillance, and applied it to the problems of the leper, the criminal, the madman, the deviant.
So we treat criminals like plague victims. We don't just banish them anymore. We analyze them, file them, schedule them, and try to fix them within a tightly controlled grid.
We project the subtle segmentations of discipline onto the confused binary space of exclusion. We create a society where everyone is constantly under quarantine, in a sense, monitored, checked, and recorded to ensure the health of the social body.
And this leads to what Foucault calls the swarming of disciplinary mechanisms. The prison wasn't some unique invention that appeared out of nowhere. It was just the most concentrated, purest form of a logic that was already spreading everywhere.
Swarming is the right word. Foucault argues that the prison looks like the factory, which looks like the school, which looks like the hospital, which looks like the barracks. They are all the same machine, just tuned for different outputs.
They all have the enclosure, the partitioning, the ranks, the timetables, the observation.
The whole toolkit.
He calls this the carceral archipelago.
Yes, it's a powerful image. He envisions modern society as a chain of islands. The prison is the big, obvious island. But there are smaller islands everywhere: the orphanage, the reform school, the psychiatric hospital, the factory, the school.
And the judges of normality are everywhere, too. We don't just have judges in courtrooms wearing robes.
No. We have the teacher judge, who judges your intelligence and behavior. The doctor judge, who judges your health and sanity. The social worker judge, who judges your family life. Even the manager judge at work, who judges your productivity.
So from the moment you are born until you retire, you pass from one disciplinary institution to another.
And they all use the same techniques: files, ranks, timetables. You are always being assessed against a norm, always being made into a case.
This really changes how you see the world. I mean, once you have this framework, you walk down the street and you see the grids. You see the observation towers, even if they are metaphorical, like CCTV cameras or performance dashboards.
And that links directly to our channel's theme, crisis in perception. This book fundamentally changes how we perceive power itself.
We used to perceive power as something visible, something spectacular, the king on his throne, the executioner on the scaffold. Power was something you looked up at.
Now, power is invisible. It's the empty Panopticon tower. It's the algorithm. We don't see who is watching. But the subject, you and me, we are hyper-visible. We are constantly being observed, tracked, and documented.
It completely reverses the political axis of visibility. Foucault points out that in the old monarchical system, the people at the top were the most individualized, the most seen. Their lives were spectacles.
The king's dinner, the king's waking up ceremony.
Right, and the common people were a nameless, invisible mass. But in the disciplinary society, it's the opposite. The people in power are anonymous bureaucrats. But the case, the child, the patient, the criminal, is the one who is intensely individualized and described in a minute detail in their file.
Your file knows more about you than anyone.
This system creates what you could call obedience without commands. I mean, think about stopping at a red light at 3 a.m. on a deserted street.
Right, there are no other cars, there are no police. Why do you stop?
You just, because the rule is in your head. The Panopticon is in your head. You police yourself.
We perceive ourselves through the eyes of the norm. We judge ourselves before the system even has to. Am I a productive worker? Am I a good parent? Am I healthy enough? We're constantly running our own internal examination.
And I want to reflect on one of the biggest philosophical bombs Foucault drops at the end of this analysis. It's about the soul.
Ah, yes, the redefinition of the soul. This is one of his most radical and often misunderstood ideas.
Usually we think of the soul as this private inner essence, the part of us that is free, the part that power can't touch. You might hear someone say, you can lock up my body, but you can't lock up my soul.
And Foucault says, wrong. That's a fundamental misunderstanding.
How can he say that? What does he mean?
He argues that the soul, what we call our personality, our conscience, our psyche, is not a mystical entity that exists prior to power, that power then tries to crush.
Okay.
Rather, the soul is produced by this system of power. It's an effect of power, not an obstacle to it.
Produced. That's a heavy claim.
Think about it. All this supervision, this constant testing, this analyzing of your behavior, this forcing you to reflect on your own abnormality and confess your faults. What does that do? It creates deep, internalized subject. It creates a psyche.
It makes us self-conscious, self-analyzing beings.
Exactly. He has this famous, shocking line, the soul is the prison of the body.
The soul is the prison of the body. That just flips the entire Western philosophical and religious tradition on its head.
Completely. The soul isn't the thing to be liberated from the body. The soul is the element where power articulates itself. It is the place where the internal monitor lives. We carry our own prison cell inside our heads because we have been trained from birth to constantly examine our own souls for faults and deviations.
So the trade-off, violence versus discipline, is even starker than we first thought. We traded the tortured body of Damien's for the supervised mind of the modern citizen.
We traded the scaffold for the timetable. The system is less bloody, yes. We don't tear people apart with pincers anymore, but it is far more invasive. It's a power that, as he says, reaches into the soft fibers of the brain. It shapes who we are, what we desire, how we think about ourselves.
It's a provocative thought to leave you with. Why does modern power feel so invisible, so normal?
Because it doesn't look like power. It looks like science. It looks like medicine. It looks like education. It looks like help. When a social worker opens a file on a delinquent child, it looks like care. And it might be care on one level, but Foucault reminds us it is also power. It is also control. It's about bringing a person into conformity with a norm.
And this reframes that old question about prisons. We always hear that prisons are failures because crime still exists and recidivism rates are high.
Right, the system doesn't seem to work on its own terms.
Yeah, but Foucault suggests that perhaps the prison succeeded precisely by failing. By creating a permanent, manageable class of delinquents, people who are constantly monitored, tracked, and cycle through the system, it justifies the constant police surveillance of the rest of society.
The existence of the delinquent validates the entire apparatus of control. It makes the surveillance of everyone else seem necessary and reasonable.
A sobering thought. We are all living in the architecture that was designed and tested in the 18th century.
We are. And I think the question the book leaves you with is, once you see the bars of the Panopticon, once you see the grid, can you ever unsee them?
I don't think I can. And I don't think I'll ever look at a timetable or a classroom or an office layout the same way again.
That is the power of this book. It doesn't give you answers, but it changes the lens. It changes the questions you ask.
We have been discussing Discipline and Punish, The Birth of the Prison by Michel Foucault. It is a dense, challenging read, and we've only scratched the surface of the deep genealogical analysis he does.
I highly recommend reading the original text if you're up for it, or at least a good guide to it. The detail Foucault goes into about the architecture, the specific laws, the military manuals is just incredible.
This project is free and publicly accessible. If you'd like to support the time, tools, and research behind Crisis and Perception, you can become a supporter on Patreon.
For a shorter visual overview of this topic, see the mini explainer linked in the description.
If you enjoyed this kind of systems-level analysis, please like, subscribe, and comment with books or topics you'd like us to explore next. Thanks for listening.
Stay curious.